Hey, this is Jamey with Stonemaier Games, and on today's Sunday Sit-Down video, I'm going to talk about my top 10 favorite underrated games. Now, a few quick things before I go into this list. One, underrated is obviously very subjective. I'm referring to the BoardGameGeek list of top however many games that are on that list. I just went through there. I started at 500 and I worked back to see where I really should start the list. I end up starting it at number 900 on the list, and then I will go down to number 1829. So that I found 10 games in there that I really love, that I think are underrated based on what other people have chosen to rate. But the idea of the rating system is very subjective in its own nature. So I'm not saying that these games are inherently like bad or anything like that. I'm saying that I love these games, and I was surprised that they don't have higher rankings on BoardGameGeek. But that's based on what other people have decided to vote. One of the caveats is that I tried to pick games that had a substantial number of ratings, because a game on BoardGameGeek could have only a handful of ratings and still be very lowly rated. I also avoided picking very new games that are clearly moving up the list at a pretty brisk pace and will be higher than that pretty soon. But some on there are Hadara and On Tour. I think they will be much higher in the near future. Those are games that I really, really like, but I think they'll be moving pretty quickly. So I picked games that have kind of almost anchored themselves at these lower ratings, and I really love them. I was surprised to see them this low. Obviously, I didn't pick any Stonemaier games. I never picked Stonemaier games for these lists, of top 10 lists at least. And yeah, that's it. So let me jump in. Oh, and the order of this list isn't unlike usually when I do it. It's the order in which I like the games. This is I'm going to start at number 900 and work down to the lowest rated game that I really like. And actually, as I'm saying that, I realize I forgot to get that game off the shelf. So we're gonna get a little twist here. At the very end, I'm gonna go run and get that game off my shelf. Yep, it's still back there. So we'll do that at number 1. A little bit of excitement there. Number 10 is Treasure Island at number 900 on the list. Treasure Island has made some of my other lists because it's both a hidden movement game and it's a game where you use dry erase markers. One player is playing as, I believe, Blackbeard, who is in jail and being interrogated by the other players who are competing against one another to find the treasure and competing against Blackbeard to find the treasure before he does. And so they're interrogating Blackbeard to get information out of him, and they're using that information to draw on this beautiful map and identify the treasure. And the thing that I love about this game the most, I've played both roles, I've played both sides of it, but the thing I love the most is that the treasure can be the smallest little dot on the map. Like it really is the smallest little dot, and it can be almost anywhere on this map. It can't be like on a line on the map, but at any specific place on the map. So you're at the beginning of the game, you have no idea where it could be. It could be literally anywhere on this map, and it's so big, and you're like, how am I possibly going to narrow this down? But then you do over the course of the game by blocking off entire areas of the map that just don't fit the clues that you've been given. Really awesome game. Wonderful. I guess it's not really a hidden movement game because there's no hidden movement itself. There's just hidden information, and you're also kind of trying to keep this information from other players because you're competing against them to find the treasure before they do, or find it before Blackbeard does. Because if you take too long, he's going to break out of prison, and of course Blackbeard knows where the treasure is, so he's going to go right to it and get it. That's number 10 on BoardGameGeek. It's number 900. That's Treasure Island. My number 9 is poker. I guess I should have a visual here for poker. I do have cards, but I didn't get that off the shelf. Poker. And on BoardGameGeek, it's listed as any type of poker. I, for years, played Texas Hold'em. I hosted a game night, a weekly Texas Hold'em game night where we bought in for $10 and just played a few hours of poker and had a great time. We did that for years before I hosted my regular game night now. And I love it. I love the bluffing aspects. I love having a little bit of money on the line. I'm not really into betting or gambling, but poker, I think, is just more meaningful and more fun if you have a little bit of something on the line. Otherwise, it's a little bit too loose. You can go all in whenever you want because the chips don't actually mean anything. So which is kind of weird. It's weird that other games aren't that way, but poker, I think, specifically is that way. But I love the bluffing aspect. I love doing weird things with poker, not looking at my hand, trying to read other players. I love that there is a lot of luck in the game, but it really comes down to the players who are the best at betting strategies and bluffing strategies. that's why Poker, number 964 on BoardGameGeek, is my number 9. Number 3, in the last game before we get to the thousands, is Legacy of Dragonholt. I discovered something about Legacy of Dragonholt a few months ago. Legacy of Dragonholt is an adventure, choose-your-own-adventure cooperative storytelling game, where the story is narrative. It's narrative written in this book. It doesn't use any dice. It uses skills that your characters have, and then you make choices based on those skills. So you might have an encounter in Legacy of Dragonholt where it says there's a bridge that's blocked by a troll. I don't know if there are actually any fantasy elements. Well, yeah, there are fantasy elements. There's a bridge that's blocked by a troll. It might give you two choices, like do you go across the bridge or do you try to go under the bridge? And then it might give you some other choices based on your skill. So it might say, okay, if you have the Arcana skill, you can cast a spell to try to blast the ogre off the bridge. And you just do it. Like, you don't actually roll any dice to see if you can do it. You just do it, and then you read the next passage. But the thing I've discovered about Legacy of Dragonholt is that it is a wonderful game to play in the car when you have multiple people there, because you can have one person who's just reading out of this book, and everyone else is just chiming in with their decisions and their ideas and their thoughts, because you're not rolling dice or anything like that. You only need that book, and ideally a pencil and paper, because sometimes you have to write down little things. But it's super, super easy to play in the car, and I had a blast doing that. It really made a 2-hour car ride fly by. So that's why Legacy of Dragonholt, number 990 on BoardGameGeek, is my number 8. We're into the thousands now, and this is the first game that I actually have with me. This is number 1066, the Shipwreck Arcana. This is an amazing, deductive, puzzly, cooperative game. It's really it is one of my top 20 games of all time now. I know this is fairly newer, so I hesitated to put this on this list, but I think it's worth it because this game is really, really good. The core idea is that each player takes turns having a little bit of information and trying to give clues based on that information to the other players so that they can solve a quick little puzzle. It's a little hard to describe. You can watch videos about it if you want, but basically I have some numbers and I'm trying to use some clues that are on the table to place one of those numbers on a clue so that the other players will guess the other number in my hand. And so it gives you all these opportunities to feel clever, whether you are the clue giver, whether you're the one with the tokens in the hand, or if you're the other players. And it gives you kind of the flip side of deduction, because you get to play both sides throughout the game. I'm going to take a turn where I do that with my little numbers, and then someone else will take a turn, and I'll be able to then be one of the people who are guessing what the number in their hand is. So it gives you two ways to feel clever in the game, which I think is really cool in a cooperative game. Just love this game, Shipwreck Arcana. This is a must-play if you love puzzly, cooperative games. I think it's great. And it plays in like 20 minutes. That's my number, what is that? Number 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's, my number 7, the Shipwreck Arcana 1066 on BoardGameGeek. Is that right? Yeah, my number 6 is Arctic Scavengers. This is a game that I think I may have only played it once, maybe twice, but I need to get my hands on a copy because it is a wonderful deck building game with this really cool element where you are holding back cards at the end of each round to kind of have this combat with other players. It's awesome. It's really, really cool, this idea that you don't want to play your best cards during kind of the main phase of each round because you want to have the really good cards left over to have this fun interaction with the other players. It's very brief. It's not in a long, drawn-out combat. It's just a little thing where you're holding on to these cards and playing them, comparing them to other players. I love it. I think it's a brilliant way to add a little bit of player interaction to the game and give you a tough choice in a deck building game where you don't just automatically play all your best cards. That's Arctic Scavengers at 1,111 on BoardGameGeek. That's my number 6. My number 5 is another game that I do have. This is the classic Scotland Yard. This has been rated like over 12,000 times on BoardGameGeek. So this is one of the biggest surprises to me that it's rated this low because of the number of times it has been rated. It is my favorite hidden movement game. It is super, super streamlined. One player plays this Mr. X character. The other players are trying to find Mr. X on this board as Mr. X moves around. It's super, super easy to start playing because the rules are so streamlined. And I love that very early in the game, instead of stumbling around in the dark for the entire game trying to figure out where Mr. X is, Mr. X has to reveal him or herself 3 turns into the game. So you know exactly where they are, and then they disappear again. But I love that almost right away you get that information. It adds a ton of tension to the game. It makes it rather difficult for Mr. X, which is a good thing, I think. And it just makes it more fun for the players who are trying to find him or her. That's why Scotland Yard is my number 5. Is that right? Number 5 at 1169 on BoardGameGeek. At 1241 on BoardGameGeek, my number 4 is New York Slice. This is one of my favorite I Cut You Choose games. It's a pizza cutting game. Every round in this game, you put together this pizza full of slices of pepperoni and anchovies and mushrooms and all these different things that are on the pizza. And then one player cuts that pizza into different slices, different configurations. And one by one, the other players around the table have to choose one of those slices as their own. And then they make another choice as to whether or not they want to eat those pieces right away, which results in endgame points, or if they want to keep those pieces in the hopes of scoring majority for those pieces. So if I have, like I think there's like 9 of a certain type of piece in the game. It has a number 9 on it. And if you have the most of those pieces at the end of the game, you get 9 points. Very easy to remember. 9 tiles, 9 points. And so there's all these wonderful, these layers of interactions throughout the game. When you're cutting, when you're choosing, when you're deciding whether or not to keep this pizza slice out on the table so you can try to score majority, or if you eat it right away and score for the pepperoni at the end of the game. It is I Cut You Choose, streamlined and just awesome. I really, really love this game. Surprised that it's so rated so low at 1241. That's New York Slice. My number 3 game, genuinely surprised to see this on this list. Maybe there's a mistake. Maybe it's just a misspelling or something. But Flip Ships is number 1372. Oh, yeah, I have this on my shelf. Let me grab it. I grabbed my number 1 there, too. So Flip Ships. Sorry, I forgot that I had this. Flip Ships is my number 3 at 1372 on BoardGameGeek. This is an awesome cooperative game where you use dexterity elements, which I think make for a fantastic cooperative experience. Because in a competitive game, dexterity elements can be really frustrating if someone next to you is just a little bit more dexterous than you, or just lucky. But in a cooperative game, you're all having those highs and those lows, those moments together. You're experiencing them together. When you get that lucky shot and you hit it into the mothership, that's awesome. No one feels like you got luckier than them because everyone is happy that you got lucky. When you have an unlucky shot or a terrible shot, like a sure shot where you were going to definitely hit something and you somehow miss, it's one of those collective cooperative moments where you feel like you all kind of failed together, but in a fun way. Flip Ships, I'm surprised that more cooperative games don't use dexterity elements, because this is really, really clever aspect to have in this game. That's Flip Ships, number 1372, my number 3. I no longer have this game. I am blown away that this game is so low on the list in terms of ratings. And possibly it's because so few people have rated it. This is The Rise of Queensdale at number 1768. I debated putting this on this list because I think only around 600 people have rated it, which I think is slightly a testament to the number of people who actually are playing through campaign games at this point. I think it's tough to do that with the number of campaign games that are coming out. But The Rise of Queensdale is an awesome game. This was my favorite game. Did I play it last year? I think it was my favorite game of 2018, when I played it. Absolutely amazing legacy game, village building game. It has many of the elements that Charterstone does thematically, but mechanically it's completely different than Charterstone. And in ways, as much as I love Charterstone, the game that I designed, obviously, I love Queensdale as well because it's so unique. It does these mechanisms so different. I can't even go into the mechanisms because there are so many little clever things, little mini games, little things that emerge. But I was even surprised by how good the core game is. In the very basic game, you are just walking around gathering herbs, and it's fun. It's a ton of fun. So I am so surprised that this game is not rated higher. It is a wonderful legacy game. And if you have the chance to get it, I highly recommend it. I'm guessing, given how low it is, I'm guessing that it's on sale somewhere right now. So if you have the chance and open time in your schedule to play a campaign game, I highly recommend The Rise of Queensdale, my number 2 at 1768 on BoardGameGeek's rating. You may have seen me grab my number 1. This is at 1829 on BoardGameGeek, and this is Seikatsu. This is just a light abstract game. You can kind of see what it looks like back here. But this is my favorite game to play at 3 players when I have like 20 minutes. So it's like a 20-minute filler for exactly 3 players. Each player has their own perspective. There's blue, pink, and green. You sit from that corner and you look at the board from that angle. And that matters because at the end of the game, you're going to look at, I believe it's, I always forget this. It's either the birds, no, it's the flowers. I believe it's the flowers. Yeah, you're looking at the flowers in rows from your perspective. So ideally, you'd have the same flower in, these are tiles that you're putting on the board, in these rows that extend from your perspective. During the game, you get points from having little clusters of birds. They're birds in the middle of the tile and flowers on the outside. But I love this perspective element because it means that everyone's looking at it from a little different angle. They're trying to get their tiles to line up, and at the same time, they can kind of see, or they can see, if they want to, the nice rows that you are forming, and they can try to disrupt that by placing tiles strategically during the game. So it's this really nice interaction, but it's also very pleasant. It's very easy to learn, very easy to play. Seikatsu, wonderful, wonderful abstract game at number 1829 on BoardGameGeek. And because it's the lowest on this list, that's why it's my number 1. Again, these games are really in no particular order other than the BoardGameGeek list. So those are 10 underrated games that I have really just had a lot of fun with. I picked all games that I would be eager to play if someone came tonight and said, hey, Jamey, do you want to play this game? There were other games that I really, really like that were 900 plus on BoardGameGeek, but maybe didn't quite make that cut of if someone would say, do you want to play it? I don't necessarily know if I would say yes. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. This is really easy to do. If you want to go to BoardGameGeek, if you do rate games on BoardGameGeek, go to BoardGameGeek and click through the top 100 list until you get to like the 900s, the thousands, and let me know your games that you love that are 1,000 plus, that aren't brand new, and that have a decent number of ratings that you consider underrated. Not as a slight to those people, there's other people who've rated it, but just games that you love that you think other people might want to discover, even though they're not getting very much attention or many ratings over time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on your favorite games in that category in the comments below. Thanks.